Now, next question is, how will it be compatible with legacy systems? One possible approach to doing this can be understood from this example. Let us say we have a system in the backend that knows these extra details about the backend on the user side. So if the user provides his or her data in a form of a spreadsheet, then the provider side can create a data model extension for the user and populate the data accordingly. There are better ways existing, and mind you, better in terms of that specific application. This is still one of the bigger open research areas in SaaS, where better ways to make it compatible are still being looked into. Next question we look at is, how do you go about retrieving all of your data if you want to switch providers? This can be a major issue depending on how the data for the user is being stored on the server side. As intuition would say, it would be harder for shared databases, whereas would be easier with isolated databases. In isolated databases, all the data that is in the server is basically dedicated to one user and hence belongs to none other than that user. If data is to be retrieved due to switching providers or just reverting back to old data, i.e. performing a rollback, it would be much easier since the provider will know exactly where to retrieve this data and thus making the process economical. Consider a shared database now. In this case, the database space is shared between many users. Now, you can have the setup such that all the data is co-located in reference to everybody else's. However, still retrieving such specific data for every specific user is still going to be a costly process. Even though the provider will save money by sharing the database, while retrieving the user requested specific information, it could turn out to be an expensive option. Now, next is a very generic question, who actually needs it? This seems like a trivial question, almost sounds like one, but it's actually a very important question that a consumer needs to answer before one decides to switch to SaaS from their current IT ways, or even just entering the SaaS industry as a provider. Companies tend to buy software investing large sums of money and never actually make full use of it. With SaaS, you get the option to just rent it, maybe for a month, maybe for a week, even if the provider is up for it. Thus, a user can test the software by getting a small period of subscription to see if this is the right implementation for their business. After all, this SaaS has also its other benefits of no need for additional hardware deployment and such that we have talked about before the user can consider while wondering whether SaaS is truly beneficial in their businesses.
How is the data handled between server and client in the SaaS model? Data can originate from different sources using different protocols and a variety of mutually incompatible formats. It is the responsibility of integration broker to take this data from a variety of sources, determine how the data needs to be processed and where the processed data is to be routed, and then send each piece of data to its destination in a form that the target system can use. It basically acts like a control unit of the processor. Security. Any incoming data is first processed by a malware detection tool that performs operations such as authenticating the source or digital signature, decryption, and examining it for security risks or threats such as viruses. Validation. A validation component compares the data to relevant schemas and either reject non-compliant data or send the data to a transformation component to convert it into the correct format. Synchronization or workflow. It determines how data changes could be propagated to destinations. Routing. Finally, routing rules define the destination for each piece of data. Routing might involve simply transmitting all data from a specific source to a designated target, or it might involve more complex logic such as determining a destination from content information such as a customer ID number. A data availability service lets the integration broker know the arrival of new data to the system. It takes the responsibility of transferring new and changed data between source and destination. It does it in the following three ways. Polling. Source requests the target to let it know about the changes and does it typically at regular intervals. Push. In this case, the source can communicate the changes to the data sink anytime it wants. publish and subscribe. Combines the aspects of polling and pushing. When a change is made, a change notification event is published to which the data sync can subscribe. Data can be transferred to the endpoint in either of the two different data transfer patterns. The first one is synchronization communication technique. The sender connects to the receiver and requests for the data. The target has to respond immediately. The second one being asynchronous communication technique. The receiver may not respond to the sender's request immediately. However, it responds to it within a limited period of time. Data transformation is a process which involves taking data from one source and altering its format and/or content so that it can be used by the data sync. First, the incoming data is verified with or against appropriate data to know if it is going to be converted into the required format after the transformation. Next, it sees if the required data can be enhanced by combining with the data from any source. Finally, it transfers it into a format that is understandable by the target. Better than ASP. Both ASP and SaaS allow customers to access software without hosting the software themselves. However, there are large differences. ASPs were hosting an application for you, but usually you were paying the software through a regular license. You would be paying the ASP for the hosting. The hosting of the software was the service offered by the ASP, not the software itself. Also, ASPs usually hosted one customer per instance of the software and therefore were not benefiting from the economy of scale of multi-tenancy. SaaS independent software vendors, as we described above, offer the software and the hosting as one package. Almost most SaaS independent software vendors have multi-tenant architectures and therefore can offer their software at a more cost-effective price. There are a few survivors of the ASP era who are now repositioning themselves as SaaS hosters, providing a set of shared services to SaaS independent software vendors so that they don't have to build those themselves.